Welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with hosts Grace Evans and Moses Brattrud. Stay informed on the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom. Get the facts, stand for truth. Hello and welcome back to the Family Beacon podcast. This is a very special episode we have for you today. We are here at the St. Paul Capitol and we're going to be interviewing some of our colleagues that work here at the Capitol on a regular basis, fighting for life, family, and religious freedom. We're so excited. First, we'd like to welcome on Joshua Foster.
Pastor Joshua.
Hey, so good to see you guys.
So you are here, step a little closer into the frame here.
Sure.
So you're here today, and we did not plan this.
Did
we
not
did not
plan
know
it.
you were going to be here.
Right.
But your work at the Capitol is crucial. So what are you up to?
Yeah, we're walking around. We're meeting with representatives, senators, opening up God's Word, trying to encourage them from the Word. And then also we believe that God commands us from 1 Timothy to pray for our ruling authorities. And so prayer is powerful, and we want to be able to intercede with our legislators with them and actually know what their requests are and how we can point them to God. So
wow, that's amazing. And so your work is with the Church Ambassador Network.
Church Ambassador Network. Yeah.
And so how many pastors do we have working with us right now?
We have a whole bunch. I don't want to give an exact number just in case I'm off, but
sure.
But I love it. I mean, pastors want to come in, and we go to both sides of the aisle. So we don't care if somebody's a Democrat or a Republican or where they fall, but we're going to go and honor them as our ruling authorities, and we're bringing God's word, and we're going to ask how we could pray for them, or we'll pray for them right there. So.
Mm-hmm. That is so amazing. I just think that's such a God thing that Pastor Jeff Evans, who started this initiative, was able to bring you on board and our other pastors who are on staff. Mm-hmm. And I just think, I want to ask one last question, because we're here, it's really quiet. Mm-hmm. Is it hard for you guys to do the work that God has set out for you when the state office building is closed and when the Capitol is half empty?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we want to be able to meet with people in person, and we want to be able to interact with as many people as we can. So definitely we would love it if more people were here. So, but we do whatever the situation has. You know, we're going to work with it no matter what. So
you're able to meet with legislators virtually
if
necessary.
Zoom, and we still, we do both with Zoom and in person. So
That's great. Pastor Joshua Foster, thank you so much for joining us.
You guys, appreciate it. See you.
I just love that the gospel tears down I just love that the gospel breaks down bridges, and I think that's something that's really unique about the Church Ambassador Network. And for more information on the Church Ambassador Network and all that they are doing, be sure to check out our previous episode where I interview my dad, who's actually the director of the program. It's an amazing episode, and we'll give you more details just on what they do on a regular basis. It's a crucial part of what we do at MFC, and we're so grateful for the whole team.
It really is. So go to mfc.org/churches, and you can see an introductory video as well. The podcast episode is great. And then if you are a pastor, go to mfc.org/churches, and you can actually sign up to come join us at the Capitol and meet with those legislators, pray for them, open God's Word with them, as Pastor Joshua just mentioned. So Grace and I are here. Obviously, we're not back in the studio, and that might be kind of a bummer because I'm sure the audio quality is not quite the same. But we wanted to talk a little bit about the legislative session, which just began on Monday. And it's a really weird legislative session, and it probably doesn't seem super quiet because it's so echoey in here, but really the halls are practically deserted. The Minnesota House...
No one walking past us.
Yeah.
So we're able to film.
Yeah, there's no one walking past us. There's some kids in here, which is amazing to see, visiting the Capitol, but it's just sad to see that our legislators, especially the members of the Minnesota House, are just not here in session as they normally would be. They're meeting virtually, but and the Capitol is still open, which we're grateful for, and the Minnesota Senate is meeting more or less normally, but it's just really sad that largest body in our state legislature is essentially closed.
Yeah.
And so I'm just bummed by that. I want to give you guys firsthand video evidence. I mean, there's kids here. There's two groups, but there are not the legislators, the staffers running past that we've seen, unfortunately, in past years.
But something that is awesome is MFC does have boots on the ground here, so to speak. We just actually had a new hire, which is so exciting. She is our public policy assistant, and she is amazing at her job. She's going to come over here and just explain to us what she does and how she's going to fight for life, family, and religious freedom this session.
Please welcome Becca Delahant.
Hello, everyone.
So happy to have you on the podcast, Becca.
Thank you So happy to be here.
So Becca, what first got you interested? How did you learn about Minnesota Family Council, and what got you interested in coming to work here?
Yeah, totally. So it's been kind of a long process. Throughout the pandemic, I discovered that I care a lot about social issues, which was kind of new to me as a Christian. I always cared about that, but not necessarily in the public sphere. But yeah, I've just felt really convicted that I want to get involved in the life issue and protecting the rights of females and children, and as far as the gender issue goes in our state. And so through a series of relationships and organizations, I was able to find Minnesota Family Council, which has been such a great fit, protecting life, family, and religious freedom. And it's just a great organization to be a part of. So, yeah.
And your coworkers are horrible?
You know, my coworkers are really tough. I'm really struggling with that, especially this one right here. It's just so hard to work with.
Yeah. I mean, just the body odor. I mean, just to start.
Video.
Yeah, I don't know how these people stand it. So, Becca, your last role was in marketing, and you went to the U, right?
I did. Yep.
What's your favorite thing to do on the weekends?
What's my favorite thing to do on the weekends? I love to hang out with my friends. I love to cook and work out and read. Yeah.
And you play soccer when the weather's not crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do a lot of different things.
Awesome. That's so great.
Yeah.
So, Becca, you are our Assistant Director of Public Policy. So you are here at the Capitol and virtually wherever you need to be, meeting with legislators, talking with our stakeholders, and helping advance the agenda of life, family, religious freedom. Can you tell us a little bit about what MFC is working towards this session, this legislative session?
For sure, yeah. So there's a lot of policy issues that we're getting involved in. And unfortunately, for confidentiality purposes, I can't talk about specific bill numbers. If you want to track them yourself, everything is available at house.mn and senate.mn. However, I can speak to broadly to the policy issues that we're going to be getting involved in. So, of course, we're going to be getting involved in protecting life, defending against assisted suicide, protecting parental rights, also defending your rights to get the counseling and therapy that you need, also protecting religious freedom, and then defending biblical interpretations of gender and sexuality. So when we dive into those issues, protecting life, that involves both protecting the unborn. There's a lot of different policy areas that we can support to protect the unborn, but also there's the flip side of protecting mothers. A lot of women, they're faced with these really difficult circumstances that they were not expecting, and they need support as well. And there are wonderful ways that we can support mothers through policy. As far as defending against assisted suicide goes, this is an interesting issue because we're all affected by it. We all have elderly family, and we all care about them and love them. And so this is really a bipartisan issue. Both Republicans and Democrats on both sides agree that we need to defend the dignity of the elderly and those who do not have as much ability. As far as religious freedom goes, we want to protect the rights of faith institutions to stay open, and also for each Minnesotan to express their faith both privately and publicly. It's very important.
So, Becca, can you tell us more about how we'll be fighting for parental rights?
Yes. So parental rights are a huge issue right now. Parents want transparency into what their kids are being taught at school. All different kinds of curriculum, including CRT issues or sexuality curriculum that parents are just unaware is happening at school. Other rights that we want to protect are your right to be able to access counseling and therapy that you need for your issues. The government should not be interfering in the counselor-client relationship. That's just completely inappropriate, and we want to defend the rights of those clients. And then finally, defending biblical definitions of gender and sexuality. We see that when males, I should say, are welcomed into female-only spaces, females and children suffer. Whether that is sexual assault or just erasing women from the public record because women are retreating as their spaces are being, infringed upon by males. And so there are so many policy areas. That's just an overview of some of the issues that we especially focus on. Some of those issues, there's policy already being debated on by legislators. Some of them we expect policy to come out because it's kind of a perennial issue. So you can follow along again online. But yeah.
That's awesome. So I guess with males with males coming into female athletics, it's kind of like men kind of like man spreading into female athletics.
Exactly. We have to stand against man spreading. It's a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Patriarchy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Becca, for putting up with that idiotic joke and for your work. This is so crucial.
So glad to have you on the team. It's a huge blessing.
It is a huge blessing.
Yeah.
You've done amazingly just in the few weeks that you've been here, I really have to say. And then I guess my last question for you is, what is the biggest issue for you personally, like the thing that you think about like just more than anything else?
Yeah. This is tough because I care about so many issues. I think in regard to our issues, the things that I care about the most are life and the very controversial issue of gender. In regard to life, there's two sides to that, like I mentioned earlier. So recently, in the past 6 or so months, I've really been struck by the wisdom of Solomon's mother. We're assuming Solomon in Proverbs 31:8, where she tells him, "Open your mouth for the speechless and the cause of all who are appointed to die." And I've just been really struck by how that applies to our organization and even my work. We can do so much to protect the voiceless through policy, which is a wonderful thing. And we have so much work ahead of us. So I'm super excited about that. But that's just one side of the life coin. The other side is also that we need to support these mothers who weren't expecting a baby. They want to protect that life. They want to carry that life to term, but they're just unsure of where to go. Maybe they don't have family support. They don't know how to take care of that child. And so we need to put policies in place that make it easier for her to keep that baby. So that may be financially, that might be emotional support. It might also be basic education courses like, how do I feed this baby? Or how do I strap them into a car seat? So yeah, there's ways.
As a parent, I can say that the car seat thing is way more difficult than I would have thought.
Very complicated.
That's all I'll say.
Yes,
Excuse me.
I am an aunt. I do not have children of my own, but it is complicated. So that's my heart for the life issue. On the other hand, I also really care about the gender issue, and it's interesting to me how when we allow males to enter the public spaces of females, that females and children suffer. And we see that so much in different organizations and different schools that allow males to enter, females' private spaces like bathrooms and lockers, and also the sports arena. Women are literally being erased from the record, and so they retreat from public spaces. And I'm just absolutely not going to stand for that. We fought so hard for women to have rights in Title IX, and I'm not going to let that go in the name of fake compassion.
Yes, Queen.
That's one thing. The other thing that is even more concerning, because females have a voice. I can speak for myself. Children often don't know how to explain what they're being taught, and they don't know how to explain different ideologies that are being forced on them. We see that grade school children and even kindergartners are being forced to learn gender ideology that is being contested by adults. We shouldn't be forcing this on children who are learning truth, learning the physical world by understanding physical markers, and I've understood myself to be a woman, and we should not subject these children to teaching that causes them to question their gender, their sexuality, my family's gender. That is just child abuse. We cannot cause children to be confused when there has not been confusion. Of course, we need to support children if there is confusion, but we don't want to force the vast majority of children who do not struggle with that to undergo that teaching. So those are kind of the key issue areas. That's really what brought me to MFC and what I'm super excited to get involved in. Obviously, these issues are really sad. There's a lot of really tough stories, and everyone needs to be met with the compassion of Christ. However, we also need to just take a stand for truth and support everyone along the way. So.
Wow, that is awesome. I'm so glad you're here, Becca, today, but also just working with us, and legislators who take a meeting with Becca are not going to know what hit them in a good way, in a really good way. So Becca Delahant, the Assistant Director of Public Policy at Minnesota Family Council, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Becca.
Yeah. So it has been, this is how things change here at the Capitol. It's a public building. I said it was so quiet and empty, and now folks are filling in behind me.
I wonder if it's a homeschool group. Honestly, I would be so happy if it was a homeschool group. I feel like
a homeschool group. We are not quite sure what they're doing, but there's a lot of kids, and we just love to see that. At least maybe a school group of some kind. And so what I wanted to do in the last third of this episode is to talk about what we can expect this session from our legislative leaders. Now, as you may remember, we are, I think, still the only state in the country where the legislature has a split in control. The Minnesota Senate is currently controlled by Republicans. The Minnesota House is currently controlled by Democrats. Minnesota Family Council is nonpartisan. We work with everyone who will work with us on the issues that we care about. And then, of course, also the governor is also a Democrat, Governor Tim Walz. So Grace and I are going to talk a little bit about what both Democrats are expecting to do and accomplish this session, and also what Republicans are expecting to accomplish this session. Grace, if it works for you, I thought we'd start with the Republicans.
Let's definitely do it. So, right now, first of all, there's this huge debate going on, right, Moses? So the debate is, how are we going to use, what's this technical term?
The government surplus, $7.8 billion.
$7.8 billion, excuse me. So that is a lot of money, right? So much money. And that can be put to good use. It can also be used poorly. And so that's what both sides of the aisle are debating right now. This is, I'm reading right now from the GOP's website. They just released their main objectives for this session. And I think it's really important. This episode is going to be informative. We're just going to explain what the GOP is pushing for, what the Democrats are pushing for, and just inform you. We're not going to take sides. We're just going to explain. So first and foremost, one of the main goals of the GOP this session here in Minnesota is helping people afford their lives. Now, what they specifically mean by this is they're going to specifically target income tax relief to low and middle income families to make sure that we're supporting them, make sure they want tax credits for parents, and they don't want campaign gimmicks. They just want permanent savings for Minnesotans. These are their talking points that I'm reading from. They also, their second major priority this session will be safe communities and law enforcement support. And obviously, with the recent trend of defunding the police, there's been a lot of pushback from the Republicans. They want to increase recruitment through grants and pathways to policing. They want to increase funding for our officers. They want to increase support for that. They also, their third main goal this session will be to empower parents as education partners. And again, that's something we've seen a lot over the past few months, even the past year, is CRT infiltrating our schools. And so that's something that has come up recently is, when should parents be able to speak up? Should they always be able to speak up? How much power and say do they have over their children's education? Of course, Moses and I
always all the power.
Yes, we have very specific opinions on this. Again, giving you the facts of what the GOP is fighting for. So they are going to fight to expand funding and access to programs so that every child can read. They're going to affirm parents' roles in education and promote a parent's Bill of Rights. Finally, they're going to reduce screen time and address mental health needs by keeping kids inside the classroom, not on a screen in their homes. So that's just a broad overview of what the Republican Party is going to be fighting for in this session. Moses, what are the Democrats going to be looking at and fighting for this session?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting, given that last fall we did just see folks in the city of Minneapolis try to defund the police department. Leaders here at the Capitol are singing a different tune on both sides of the aisle. Mm-hmm. Governor Tim Walz and Speaker of the House Melissa Hortman have both said that they also want to increase the amount of money that is spent on recruiting police officers.
That's actually really interesting.
Which is great.
Okay.
Because if that's true, then we're seeing bipartisan agreement on something that pretty much almost everyone agrees on, except for this hardened core of activists who want to defund the police. Yeah, some progressive activists want that, but most people would really like for there to be more cops on the beat here in the cities, in St. Paul, in Minneapolis, but also just around our communities around the state. So other things that the Democrats are looking to do, I watched a video with the majority leader in the House, Ryan Winkler, and he was talking about some of their agenda, and they talk in kind of the same language about like helping people afford their lives, but they just take a different. They do have different goals, so they really want to focus on subsidized childcare and subsidized health care, and so when the interviewer really prodded him, it was like, well, what about using that huge pot of money, $7.8 billion, for a permanent tax cut? And he, Majority Leader Winkler, said, well, tax cuts won't give you health care. So that was kind of an interesting statement. And he also said that tax cuts usually benefit only rich people and businesses. And I can't help but point out that those rich people and businesses are generally the job creators, and so when you do free them up financially, as the state is able to do, then they're able to hire more people, pay them more money, and then they are able to pay for childcare and healthcare. So it kind of what goes around comes around there. Another Democrat priority is to legalize marijuana. They want to. It's currently in Minnesota. It's medical only. You need a note from a doctor to get cannabis, and they want recreational cannabis to be legalized. That's going to face a really uphill battle. That's an issue that I don't think Republicans are interested in visiting. I was at a marijuana hearing, I think 2020, I think it was, and there just doesn't seem to be much of an appetite on the right side of the aisle. They don't have the munchies for legalizing marijuana.
Some of the jokes Moses makes, you guys. There's a bunch of kids, as we said, congregated back here. And
Hi. I just love seeing all these kids there. So the biggest single thing in terms of what the Democrats want to do, just in terms of how much it would cost the state, is something that Tim Walz is calling Walz checks.
That's really interesting, honestly.
Is it an election year? Oh, yes, that's right. It's an election year. And so Governor Walz wants to send something along the lines of $250 per family unit. I don't remember precisely how much money it was. You can check me on that. But that's a really interesting move. That's,
I saw
in terms of
that.
You saw a tweet about that?
Yeah. And I think, when the average Gen Zer sees that tweet, they're like, oh, yeah, Walz wants to give us more money. And so I think, like you say, I feel that it is an election ploy trying to raise himself in the graces of the Minnesotan people. My opinion, of course, that's not.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think that's pretty much clearly what it is. When President Trump had stimulus checks sent out at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, he made sure that with that in the mail, I got a statement saying Donald J. Trump, right? It had his signature on it, and I was supposed to be grateful to President Trump for that stimulus check. And you know what? I was. I'm not going to say no to money, to free money. I understand the long-term...
An inspirational quote.
Yeah, well, I think I'm not alone there. So obviously, most people are going to take money when it's given to them. The question is it good for the long-term stability of our state's finances? And also...
can we use it in other places? Should we use it in other places?
Can we and should we use it in other places? Like, for example, in a permanent tax cut. That's one other. And the other thing I think...
Let me tell you. Inflation. Don't even don't get us started on that.
I think 7% was the number of inflation for all of 2021, which is more than double what it had been previously. And in some items like housing...
And just for regular things like butter. That you buy to make cookies or to spread on toast. So that has been interesting. As you're saying, though, one other priority from the Democrats?
Well, what I was going to say, one more thing on the Walz checks is that whole name, the Walz checks, like that was his staffers who came up with that. and then they're like, well, Governor Jesse Ventura, when he did a similar thing, they called it Jesse checks or something along those lines. And then people pointed out, well, no, Governor Ventura didn't call them that. That's just what the media and individual people call them that. So, Governor Walz is essentially just, adding that name on there. And he wants to take credit for that, which, he's the governor. If he wants to take credit for giving free money to Minnesotans in an election year, well, we'll just let that speak for itself.
Let's just not let that blind us from the fact that he is very staunchly pro-abortion. That's something that Moses and I will talk about in future episodes. All of the Republican candidates, the main leading Republican candidates for governor, are very pro-life, and Walz is very pro-choice. And so even if you agree with, I would like another stimulus check, there should be one major thing on your mind. Don't let the little things he's doing or the side things he's doing dissuade you or distract you from one of the most major issues of our day. In my opinion, the biggest issue of our day.
I have to say I agree. Governor Walz, when he was in Congress, he once said, "I'm so pro-abortion that Nancy Pelosi told me to tune it down." That is what he said when he was in Congress, and I think he's shown himself to be a governor for the abortion lobby while he's in office, and it's really sad to say that, but it's true. I pulled out my little piece of paper here because I wanted to make sure I covered all of the Democrats' priorities.
Yep, and use their wording specifically, which is what I did.
Yeah, so Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan had lists to say, whether it's expanding access to safe and affordable housing, building safer roads and bridges, upgrading higher education facilities, or investing in organizations serving Black, Native, and communities of color, we have an opportunity to make transformative change in communities across the state. And when she says opportunity, what she means is we have that $7.8 billion that we can spend in these ways. So that's what the Democrats are looking for as we come into this legislative session. We're almost 1 week done now, and I want to give you a sense of what is going to happen for the rest of the session. So members are introducing bills in the House and the Senate. A bill obviously needs to pass through both the House and the Senate and then be signed by the governor to become law. But even before it passes out of the House or the Senate, it has to go through a committee, generally multiple committees. So the committees are meeting now. Generally, that's what's happening as opposed to sessions on the floor. I think they have those as well. So by March 25th, that's the deadline where committees have to act favorably on the bill. And then April 1st, committees in the other house have to act on those bills. And then on April 8th, committees have to act favorably on major appropriation and finance bills. And then the session will go through the mid to late May of this year. So that's the timeline. It's relatively short. It's an absolutely crazy time here at the Capitol for us as an organization. And
it's go time.
It is.
Yeah. We're right in the thick of it, honestly. And so Moses and I aim to keep you updated on the most important things that we're facing here in the legislature. We'll keep you updated as we can with what Becca is doing behind the scenes. Of course, a lot of it is going to be confidential, but as things come up and that we can share, or if there are action alerts that we can send out or specific petitions that you can sign, we will keep you posted either on our email list, on the podcast, or both. We will be here on the ground at the Capitol again for sure. Hopefully we will make improvements to the audio quality, just making sure.
I'm sure it's a bit of a dull roar right now, and I apologize.
Yeah, we do apologize for that. But if you've made it this far in the episode, we really appreciate you tuning into this special episode.
Say one more thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, Grace, were you able to get to the caucuses on Tuesday?
I was not. What did I have on Tuesday night? I think I had a meeting with my church. So, Did you go?
I did caucus for the first time. So I wanted to just briefly talk about that because it was wonderful. For me, essentially it involved sitting at a table with some people from my neighborhood because the precinct is very small, sitting around a table with a couple of people, and they brought their kids. It was just fun, and it was just multi-generational. We had people from like age 13 to age 70 at the table. Obviously, the 13-year-olds can't vote in the caucus. And so the things that the caucus did essentially was we took a straw poll on the race for governor. That was the biggest thing that we did on Tuesday night.
And about how many people were there?
In my caucus, there were 60 or so.
Okay, so the straw poll was about over 60 people?
Well, no. The straw poll was across 4,000 different caucuses across the entire state. And every one of them ran a straw poll. And the results were interesting. So we have, at that time, we had 6 candidates for governor. Now we have 7 Republican candidates for governor, also Governor Tim Walz. And then, and so I want to give you the straw poll results if you haven't seen them. Former Senator Dr. Scott Jensen won the straw poll with 38% of the vote.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's really doing strong.
Remember, he didn't win
doing
our
well.
straw poll.
He did not win the straw poll when we did our debate. So that's an interesting.
That is interesting to compare.
It shows that he has appeal statewide, and people are calling him the front runner right now.
Wow. Okay.
That doesn't mean that he will win. Senator Paul Gazelka was second, and then he was down there with 14%, and then there are other candidates that were even lower. And then even there's another candidate, Hennepin County former Sheriff Rich Stanek, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that name right, but he just announced for governor on Tuesday.
Wow.
And it's absolutely crazy that people are getting into the race this late. It shows that it's a competitive.
Change is coming. People want to see change.
People do want to see change. In fact, the last number that I have for you as we close out this episode is there was a KSTP poll, and it showed the in terms of the polling numbers between incumbent Governor Walz and his current Republican opponents, and it actually showed him just 1 point ahead. It actually showed Governor Walz just 1 point ahead of Dr. Scott Jensen in the general election, and only 5 points ahead of Senator Paul Gazelka in a hypothetical matchup for the general election.
Let me tell you, I would love to see a pro-life governor. We would love to see it. So we will keep you posted just on how things continue to progress and what happens, just who continues to be the front runner, because that's going to be really important.
It's a crazy year, and I just want to say last thing that last gubernatorial election was in 2018, and that was just at that moment the Democratic candidate was so much further ahead at the same stage in the race, right? Than what we're seeing right now. So. It's an exciting year. We could see a Republican elected for the first time to statewide office since 2006.
And you know what we're going to do if that happens? We're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, not only on the national level, but here in Minnesota. And what we need is a pro-life governor for that.
Yes, we need a pro-life governor. We need pro-life control of both houses of our legislature, the Senate and the House, because I'm standing right here. And that's why we have Becca here, as well as our pastors that are working, and they don't do policy, but they are praying with our legislators every day and every week, building relationships, building bridges. And so this has been a really special episode of the Family Beacon.
Yes.
I mean, for starters, we're here at the Capitol, which is awesome. Second of all, we got to talk to Pastor Joshua Foster and the amazing Becca Delahant. And now we're coming in for a landing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, this is the Family Beacon podcast, where you can get the facts so that you can stand for truth. I'm Moses with Grace Evans. So grateful that you are watching and listening today. Thank you so much.
For listening to or watching this episode of the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you're up to date on life, family, and religious freedom. You can follow us on Instagram at MN Family Council and subscribe to us on YouTube to watch our content. Get the facts, stand for truth.